That's one. And that's two. Alright, so this needs to go out. This needs to go out. Alrighty, so let's get this show on the road. So, alright, let's drop that in here. Alright. It's there. Alright. So let's see here. Alright. So this is going to be the last time working on update 2.0.0, hopefully. So this is all that's left on the update, not including bug fixes. So yeah, that's it, which is really nice. Alright, so what I think I'm gonna tackle first is the code, because it's easier to describe things in code and then make the UI fit that. So that's what I'm thinking I'll start with first, because my first priority is remaking the material menu. Because right now, all of our Creation Tools UI has been remade in UiV4, except the material menu. I mean, heck, even the File Explorer is using the UiV4 format. So it's just the material editor that still sucks. So, hello Amity, and hello Avery. So, yeah, hopefully this should be the last time I have to add features to 2.0.0. It's just the bug fixes after that. So, yeah, I guess it's probably easiest just to get into it because I only have about an hour to work on this. So, what I'm gonna do first is probably just completely gut this whole system and rebuild almost entirely the whole thing. I'll keep the refresh. I'll keep the on-texture descriptor update and the refresh APIs because those have dependencies, or rather, they have dependents, as it were. I have that highlighted here actually. So those need to stay as close as I can to the current API for those. But anything else I can basically just gut and rewrite. So that's what I'm gonna do. And honestly, compared to the hierarchy, which I made this morning, this should be relatively simple because it's just basically 3 properties. It's occurred to me, if I were to re-architect anything, I almost wonder if we could have like the material synchronization handler just be a configurable object instead of having a menu for it, but that would be dumb, but it'd be funny. It'd just keep things kind of standardized, but at the same time, probably not worth the effort, and it'd be more of basically a gimmick, but then again, that's what the whole game is, so. Alright. So, first things first, I need to just basically gut the whole UI code. So, I can just select here. Is this in a namespace? It is. So select here and come all the way up to here. Delete. That's always the fun part, because I can just go all the way up and delete. And now I need to fix these dependencies. So I can also just tear out all of the iterator code because I'm going to rewrite that anyway. So yes, I got up at like 6 this morning to work on, to basically rewrite the entire hierarchy menu. I can show that off if I have time. It's significantly better, but at the same time it was a big pain. Pretty much. I mean, with some of the old architecture or some of the old code, that's basically what I had to do for most of it, was just delete the whole thing, keep only the essential things that had a lot of dependents, and then just rewrite everything. That's what I did for most of the creation tools. I don't know if you saw the commit, but actually, like, the creation tool itself, the actual UI on the tool, like the pen part, not the overall overarching creation tools. I actually remade the UI on those in UI-v4. So this, the material menu, is the only thing that still uses the old UI style, not including obviously the footer, but I'm gonna keep that just because it's easier, and I don't want to change it because I don't have that much time. So basically, I'm also just gonna gut the actual UI itself. So this can just get chucked, and blank canvas. Wow. So alright. So what I'm thinking is, first things first, we need to get our singletons set up, because this whole thing relies on singletons kind of heavily. That's kind of a staple of the custom rooms system, is singletons, because that's when I was first discovering this kind of pattern. So you're going to see a lot of things like instance and statics instead of things like dependency injection or anything like that. But so let's see. So private material menu instance. I'm actually going to rename this to underscore instance. Although now that I think about it, I use underscore for instance variables, not for statics. So I'll just go with instance because it's easier. If I could type properly, that would be wonderful. So now we need to implement the underscore or the instance refresh method. So that will then start on the actual UI code. So for that, we're going to need to do private void underscore refresh, and that will resolve that error. Oh, trust me, I know, because I'm the one that got to optimize those things for 1.5.0 and now for 2.0.0. It was interesting. Oh yeah, it's also, Avery, you remember how the old OBJ importer, you remember how long that used to take, right? Like, that used to take, like, minutes to import. It literally takes under a second now. It's crazy. It's so much faster. Oh, okay. Well, the old architecture on this current one is still not good. But, oh well, it's getting better. Granted, it won't continue to get better, for reasons I will explain later. Well, you already know the reason, but not everyone does. So, yep, it will get better for 2.0.0, but that's about it. So let's get started on this. So, we're gonna need, well, what do we need for basic UI? So, we're gonna need, well, first off, we're gonna need a class for a material button, because this is using the pretty standardized iterator pattern that I've established for, basically the iterator pattern is a system that we have, systems. This is the paged list class, which basically just lets us iterate over a collection with a fixed page size. and it replaces empty parts or index out of range things with just null, hence why it has to be class. But that makes accessing it significantly easier because you can just iterate over the whole thing, and as long as you handle nulls, it's actually significantly easier because you don't have to worry about index out of range. But so this has become a pretty big thing, and then we also have obviously like caching, async, time, all these utilities, which I think will actually carry over to something I cannot actually discuss yet, but you will hear about that soon. I don't know, let me look. Oh yeah, this is because how is that syntax? It's literally just the normal thing but without spaces. I just didn't put spaces. This is a ternary expression. So if it's 0, then we put the page index as 1. Otherwise, we divide by the items per page. So that way we're not dividing 0 by something, which, you know, is obviously not good. Yeah, I just didn't put spaces. I just didn't think to put spaces at the time because I had no real reason. Honestly, if you're looking for bad syntax, there are significantly worse places you can find it, trust me. But anyway, so let's see. So header, parents, serialize, field, private, game, object, m, editor, parent. I mean, not entirely wrong. I didn't say that, but you're not entirely wrong. So, let's see. So then we're also going to need... Right, so we actually do need a material button class. I forgot to create that. That's one of the lovely things about Unity is that you can't actually create classes from VS Code. You have to do it from Unity or it won't get registered to the CS project file, which is lovely. Great job, guys. So, also the whole existence of CS project files just causes me, like, internal agony, but that's besides the point. So, UI, create C# script, and material button. So, then once this compiles, I can get to work on that. So, this is part of the iterator pattern, is instead of using, like, just trying to basically wing it by having, like, a list of the text things or a prefab that you instantiate, they're all already there. It's basically the ultimate version of pooling because they're all just already there. There's no instantiation, there's no destroy, everything is just there, which is really nice. Because it's significantly better performance, because, yeah, Unity especially is a pain because it uses a lot of, like, non-standard, like, directory structures, so they're not really as compatible with things like Visual Studio. VS Code is pretty good about that because it doesn't have native C# support, so it's a plugin, so you can kind of, like, tweak settings and stuff, but either way, Unity is a pain, so it's a pain in pretty much anything. But, so that is just about my hour mark, so let's see here. So header, tempting. Unfortunately, it's the only thing I have experience in right now. If I had thought to learn C++ in Unreal, I would be significantly better off right now with Lumen and all that, but I didn't, and I haven't, so, oh well. I don't know, I'm comfortable with Unity, it's just, it's a pain in the neck. It's one of those things, you know. Hi, Audi. What is it? Who? Oh, TLS. I thought that was an acronym for someone's name, not TLS as in the protocol. Yeah, Unity hurts in significantly more places than just the neck, trust me. Unity sucks. Unity is not a fun engine at all. I mean, it's significantly better if you're doing a 2D game, or not a 2D game, but a screen game, but for XR especially, Unity is nasty. I mean, heck, even Photon isn't that fun to work with. It's gotten better with things like the ephemeral object handler that I wrote, but the fact that I had to write that myself instead of just it being a basic part of the architecture is really irritating. And overall, it's just a weird architecture, but that's besides the point. So I need to actually work on this. So, so material list, and then we'll have material editor. So serialize field private game object m increment material list button. Yeah, anything to do with Unity XR is weird. Material button array m material buttons, and then header material editor. Do we want to support changing the names of materials? I feel like that's a really important thing that we haven't really had the chance to add. And this is the chance to add it because now it's rewriting the whole editor. So this is the chance to write it. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's a really important thing because right now it's basically just set when you first change a material and then you can never change the name. You can't even choose the name in the first place. So, serialize field private game object, or no, TMP input field m name field, that needs to be capitalized properly. Serialize field private, you know, originally, the material menu was going to be significantly more granular. Like, it was going to have specialized properties for every shader type. So that way we could have things like the water shader and all that. Kind of like the configure menu does now. But honestly, like, it's not worth it. for something this scale, and with obviously, you know, one UGC developer, it's just not worth it. So let's see. So then we need header material editor shader. And then we need so then I'm wondering how I want to handle this, because what I could do is have it just scroll through like it used to, you know, where it just scrolled and whatever it scrolled to was what got set. Or I could make it scroll over a list, and then in that list there's buttons that you can press that switch it to that shader, so that way just scrolling through the shader list doesn't actually change it. But I feel like that would take us significantly more time than I have, so I'll probably just stick with our current solution, which is just figure it out. And actually that reminds me, I need to add something to the page list, so page list t, and that'll be there. So we need to be able to set the page index, so set page index equals the value times items per page. And that just makes things a little easier, because then we can set the index directly, which just makes things a lot easier for things like this. Hello, Opa. So, what I'm thinking, so we're currently rewriting the material menu because the UI for it is the only one that hasn't been upgraded to the new UI. So this is all I have left on 2.0, and I'm not gonna do the bevel tool, and I'm not gonna do image validation yet. I might do that later tonight, but I don't want to right now. So it's basically just this, which I have no idea how to fix, and rewriting the material menu. So it's basically just this. Deductive reasoning or something like that. Except it's not reasoning and it's not deductive. So basically, game object m decrement shader button serialize field private game object m increment shader button and then serialize field private TMP text m shader name button, or no, not button, label. And then I'll need to do the same for texture, or texture descriptor, I should say. And actually, I should change it to shader descriptor, because of how our architecture works. There actually are no direct shader references in the entire UGC ecosystem. Everything is based off of descriptors, which is basically just a layer of indirection. And I actually went over that in the creation tools in-depth video, which was texture descriptors and how they let us decouple the Unity texture from what you select, so you can do things like custom textures and all that. I almost wonder, it's occurred to me, I wonder if we could make a option in the photo viewer, or the feed viewer in the social menu, if we could make an option for that that lets you just directly create a texture descriptor from an image, rather than having to like scroll through the really weird texture descriptor or texture iterator we have in the texture menu. But there's no time for that, so and then the one thing that's going to be a bit tricky is going to be color selection. But luckily we already actually have a color selector from the configure menu, so I can basically just copy that and hope for the best. So then header, material, editor, texture descriptor, serialize field, private, game object, and yes, the RGBA sliders, so that way you can select a color. Decrement shader button. Serialize field. Not serializable. Private game object and increment shader button. Serialize field private TMP text m texture name label. And that says shader, not texture. So then gonna need header, material editor, tint color, and then this can be serialized field private graphic. Yes, that's definitely how that should work. And then color preview. So then that makes it significantly nicer, because currently the color preview is just the RGBA sliders, which is dumb. So just makes things kind of nicer. And then we'll have a transparency indicator behind that, so that way it makes it clearer when a texture is transparent. So that's all I can really think of that we need right now. The color picker I can implement in a minute, but from there I think it's just a matter of setting up the material button class. So this is going to need to go there, and then go up to here, put it all in a namespace, and then indent that. So that's the basis of that. And then this is basically going to be pretty simple. So this will be a TMP text which displays, or I guess I can type as I'm talking. So this will be a TMP text which displays the material name, and then just an edit button. I think that's it. So I think then we need a so I'm thinking, so we're gonna need, how are materials indexed? I think it's with an integer, so I'll go private int select viewing equal, I don't need to initialize that, and then we'll do public void render how do I want to go about indexing these? I could just iterate over the serialized materials. That would work. I think that's probably the best way to go about that, because that gives me access to all the raw information I need without a whole bunch of fuss. Alright, cool. So I'm gonna do real quick private page to list serialized material, material iter, and then I can initialize that later. Serialized materials are not a reference type? Are you kidding me? Why isn't this a reference type? That can easily be a reference type. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna convert that to a reference type. If it causes me any issues, I'll just blame it on Avery or something. You know, blame it on the non-UGC developer. That's a good idea. I'm telling you. It certainly is not an issue. It's called shifting the blame. Sorry, Avery. I can't blame it on you, Opa. You don't have source control access, so the story wouldn't check out. I mean, it wouldn't check out with Avery either, because Avery hasn't worked on UGC tools, well, ever, but it's still funny. Either way, so then we're gonna need serialized material on VS Code. Keep up, map, and then we do not have an index, do we? We do not have an index. That's a problem, because I need to store the index. Okay, you know what? Fine. I will int index, and then I can just do viewing equals index, and then I'll handle that later. And then actually, if mat equals null, game object dot set active false, return else game object dot set active true. And yes, I know you don't need an else there, but it makes my intention clearer, because it says if this is null, we stop. Otherwise, we make the game object active. It doesn't actually do anything, but it makes the intention clearer, which is the point. Not actually making syntactic sense. So, because I know if I don't say that, someone's going to judge me for it, and I know someone's going to judge me for it anyway. And that's okay. I don't care. Because that's just how I do things, and if you want to write your own UGC tools, you be my guest, because I'm not working on this anymore. So m material name label.text equals mat.name. Yes, well, I will you know what? You want to make code aesthetic cry? You want to make code aesthetic cry? You know what? Cry about it. Yes, there's a nested switch statements. What are you going to do about it? Cry about it. It's fast. It's literally like 5 times faster than the alternative, so deal with it. I'm not adding a function there, because a function call is like triple the instructions, because that means there's no inlining, so it literally is slower. It is discernibly slower to use functions, because, okay, I'm starting to sound like an idiot. I swear, I know what I'm talking about. But basically, the whole reason for, yes, right? Okay, I'm not the only person that thinks this, cool. Because the call stack, the call instruction on x86 costs an instruction. It literally increases the time it takes for your program to run. And like Amity is saying, like, it literally makes it more difficult to discern. Like, this makes sense, see? This makes sense because it says vertex texture coordinate equals read an integer, and then we slice the input, and you can go up here if you really want, and we can see this is a read-only span car, which means it's a string that's read-only, and then we know that this slices from the end of the previous thing, so we can go in, read int, and oh look, it reads an integer, it's in the name. And you can see method impl, aggressive inlining, because it makes it faster. Yeah, more abstract code is cool until you actually need it to run in less than 2 hours. Or in the case of this object parser, 5 minutes. Trust me, I was the one whose computer froze up. Yeah, that's accurate, Amity. Anyway, ran over. So, render, and then we need public void on click, and then this actually can just be a lambda, and then we'll do, actually we need a parent too, so private material menu parent, and then we can do material menu interfaces should start with I because interfaces should start with I. That's just an industry standard, which is surprising because industry standards have a tendency to not be very standard. But of all the things, you'd think that would be the random thing that people ignore, but no, apparently. So, parent, and then we need to do underscore parent equals parent, and then we can do lambda parent dot select material, and then viewing, and then I'll just let VS Code implement that. Boom. So that sets that up. Come on, keep up, VS Code. Yeah, that's literally the whole point. Is it's called a naming convention. It's there for a reason, because naming conventions let you name things clearly. It's like it's supposed to make things clearer, which prevents logic errors, which prevents misunderstanding, which prevents logic errors, which noticeably improves the quality of your code because there's not logic errors in it. Like, how is this a difficult concept to grasp? That's the entire point of naming conventions. Like, you know why law is as dense as it is? Because it's specific. That's like the whole point, is to eliminate as many possible loopholes as possible. And yes, I know that sentence was redundant. I don't care. Precisely. And I have lost 18 minutes of time, which means I need to get to work. So, let's see. So, we can have refresh the actual material list, and then we can have refresh the material editor. Refreshing the material list is a bit more expensive because we have to do a reallocation on the paged list, but that's basically just a pointer swap, so that's not actually too expensive, I don't think. But there's gonna be like a GC pause at times because we're deallocating a significant amount of memory, but I don't think that's too much of an issue for currently because I don't care. So I'm thinking we'll probably just do all of it at once because it's easier rather than trying to deal with a lot. So basically the static refresh method will refresh the page list. And actually, since this is a fixed length, we can actually just directly replace the internal list and then refresh the page so we don't lose our place, because that just makes things a bit easier. So what I'm thinking is we can go, do we have a selected variable? We do not, so we need to go private int select selected material, and then we can do selected material equals viewing, and then we can do a refresh editor later. So this is basically what I did for the hierarchy menu, just significantly more complicated. So let's see. So we have on texture descriptor update, which means we need to refresh the contents of our texture descriptor iterator. That was a lot of errors. There was a lot of ER in one sentence. And then otherwise, for a normal standard refresh, then we only need to just refresh the list of materials and the currently edited material. Cool. So I will actually split that out into two functions. So private void render material list, and then private void render editor, and then we can just do serialized material mat equals material synchronization handler dot synchronize materials, and this is a material array, not a serialized material array. So what we can do is do serialized materials, selected material, boom, and that gives us the serialized version instead of the native version. And again, fun fact, serialized materials, you know how texture descriptors are there to basically decouple the raw GPU texture from the actual representation. You know how shader descriptors exist? You know how that's all I can think of. But you know what? You know how I said everything is a descriptor? You know what a serialized material is? It's a descriptor. Everything in UGC is a descriptor. Like anything that represents data as opposed to an object is a descriptor. It's a layer of indirection. Why? Because it works, and it's easy to synchronize it over the network. So good enough for me. So tangents aside, we can do m name field.text equals mat.name, and then we can do so then we're also going to need paged lists or paged list iterators for the texture descriptors and the shader descriptors. So we can need private paged list, texture descriptor, texture iter, private paged list. You're going to see this structure a lot because I really like this structure because it removes a ton of boilerplate, and boilerplate sucks. Trust me, I've written a lot of it. So, and then we're going to have shader descriptor. Now you see, if this were the perfect language Rust, I would be able to write a macro for my boilerplate, but unfortunately I can't. So, wonderful. And then we're going to need shader iter. And Amity, yes, I am making a joke about no boilerplate. That is precisely the joke. I do not have an obsession. So, let's see. So then, on texture descriptor update, we need to do texture iter equals new paged list texture descriptor, and then we're going to need to do material synchronization handler dot instance dot texture descriptors, and then we're going to need 1 because there's just going to be 1 item per page, because this is basically just a dumbed down version of a single. Okay. Fine. There you go, C#. How much effort was that? None. How much effort did it feel like? A ton. So, let's see. So then we're going to need to do... So then the shader list should never change. That should not change at runtime. If that changes at runtime, we have a serious problem. So then, well, semi-honest work. So, okay. So what I'm thinking is, then for refresh, we're going to do render material list and render editor. And then, since serialized materials are now a class, when we update the name of one, it doesn't need to be updated internally. We don't need to remake the whole material iterator. We can just, you know, use a reference type. So now what we can do is for render editor we need, let's see, so Now we need to set the iterator index for each of these. So what's first on the list? So texture. So texture iter.page index equals mat.texture texture iter.page shader iter.page index equals mat.shader, and these are just bytes. So technically there is a limit on the number of texture descriptors because each material only uses a single byte for representing what texture it uses. So that means there's a max of 256 textures. But the thing with that is, you can't actually have that many materials. You can only have 50 materials, and even then you're pushing the limits on performance. So it's not really an issue. Who is pinging me? Right, so let's see. So shader, name, and then now we can render our texture iterator. So m texture name label dot text equals texture iter dot page 0 dot name, and then we can do m increment texture button dot set active texture iter dot can increment page, and then here we just do decrement and decrement. Wonderful. So that's texture iteration, and then we're going to need the same thing for shader iteration. So that's going to be m shader name label dot text equals shader iter dot page 0 dot name, and then we can do no. Why is that not capitalized? You know what? That irritates me enough. I'm renaming that. That's dumb. I'm renaming all of this because that's dumb. I want it to be consistent, so it's going to be consistent because I wrote it and I can rewrite it. So and then m increment shader button dot set active shader iter dot, because fields are supposed to be camel cased. That is the C# naming conventions. Fields are supposed to be camel cased, unless you are dealing with statics or something, and then it's special. But like, yeah. Oh wait, you mean the old camel case? That's just because I couldn't be bothered to do consistent naming in structures, because I wrote that like months ago. So, and then we can copy this down. Decrement shader button. Can decrement page. Cool. So that's that's almost the entire editor rendered. So there's one last thing, which is to set the color preview. So then we're going to need to do m color preview dot color equals mat dot color, and this should be tint. You know, fun fact, before Photon could serialize colors, because I had to add that manually, we had to split all 4 components of the RGBA color into their own individual float fields, instead of just sending them as one field. Why? Because Photon. As I was saying about Photon being a pain. So what I have to do is do new color, mat.tint R, mat.tint G, mat.tint B, mat.tint A. Yeah, that's what we have to do for the wonder that is Photon. So anyway, I'm not salty at all about that. So then that is rendering the editor. So now what we need to do, rendering the material list is actually even easier, because what we can do is just increment material list button.setActive material iter.can increment page, and then we can do the same thing for decrement. This is one of the nice things about the iterator pattern in CVR, or compensation, I guess, whatever, is once you memorize the boilerplate, it's really easy. It's just getting to that point is a pain. So, or basically once you develop the boilerplate, because I had to come up with all the boilerplate on my own, which was lovely. Because the whole system is pretty much entirely custom. But, so then what we do is we just do for, and then we just do material buttons I dot render, and then we do var page equals material iter dot page, and then we do page indices equals material iter dot page indices, and you know what? Then we do this wacky thing, which is extremely uncommon, and you know what we do? You know what we do? And get this, right? Wow, look at that. It's so difficult. Wow, look at that. Incredible. It's like it was made for this. It's a single for loop to render that whole block of UI. It's a single for loop and a single function call. It doesn't even need a block. It's one function call, and obviously a bunch of array accesses, but that's it. It's one function call. In case you can't tell, I really like that pattern. I'll probably be reusing it at some point. So then select material, we need to do render editor, because we need to re-render the editor. And then for incrementing and decrementing the material list, that is another two functions, because these need to be accessible from the UI, so they need to be public functions that we can assign button events to. So that'll just be public void increment material list, and then that's, now watch this one. This one is extremely difficult. See why I like this pattern? It's very difficult. Very. Not like it's 4 lines of code for one. And you know what we do for decrement? It's literally a 4-letter change. To change from increment to decrement on that whole function. Because you know what? We abstracted, or not abstracted, but we decoupled this render material list into its own function, so we didn't have to put it in both functions. Obviously that's just a normal programming thing, but it makes things significantly easier. The wonders of subroutines. So then, that gives us enough description of our UI that now we can build out the UI, and then it's just a matter of finishing up the actual, like, dynamic code, because at the moment this is all for static rendering. So, now it's just a matter of setting up the UI, and then the actual buttons, and then dynamic methods. Once this loads, because Unity is flawless software. I do not care, Avery. I do not care. And no, subroutine is a reference to the x86 call instruction, which begins a new subroutine and can be returned from using the FARRET interrupt return or the standard near pointer return instruction in the x86 instruction set. So let's see. So now we're going to need a list, and we're going to need a So first things first, we're gonna need so we're gonna need a quick background. 4. And let me get the color for this real quick because I have a color palette just saved nicely. And then I can center this and make it the right size, that way it's centered. And then it's just a matter of putting it back into stretch mode, adding 0.0025 because we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And then I can just wonderful. So that's that, and that's that. So now, all we need is the iteration buttons, which can just go in between the two. So if I do that, and then duplicate that to either side, add 0.005 and plus 0.005. There we go. So that's our iterator column, and then I can name these. So list, scroll, or scroll, and editor. So that should be on the far bottom. So then, so now I can real quickly steal from the hierarchy iteration, grab increment, move that to the bottom of that, and I need to be in scroll. And actually I will just make this full width instead of minimal width because it's easier. And then I can adjust the collider. And the scale controller. Scale controller is already fine, actually. So now it's just a matter of material editor, increment material list, and then I can grab this, decrement, and then move it to the top. Decrement material list, go way up to the top up here, and then add 180 degrees to that so that way it points upward. Cool, so that's our scroll setup. And then we need to assign these, so increment, decrement, editor, and that's all we have so far. So then we need to do the editor first. It's probably the easiest. So I'm thinking for that we'll probably do a new image, name BG, and then bevel 2 up, 150 pixels per unit multiplier, and then I will grab another color for that, our high contrast background color, because I've actually kind of like that one. Then I can snag this, drop it in there, boop, 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 and now this can go in here, lovely, boop, boop, and then minus 0.01, minus 0.01, and cool, so that's our margins in place, and then I need to adjust the collider on this. Move this to 90 instead of 180. And now all I need to do is actually implement the name change algorithm. So, do we have an option to change the name in the material synchronization handler? I don't think we do. I don't think we do, so I'm just gonna go the easy route and do public static void set material name int index string name, and then if not photon view, and then we can just do if instance equals null return. I'm just copying the boilerplate here. I don't actually know what I'm doing. Instance.photonView.rpc name of set material name rpc target.master client. This doesn't actually need to be the master client anymore because we use Photon Room properties, Photon Room custom properties for material synchronization now. But I don't feel like doing it the other way. And name, and then we need to do private void set material name rpc int index string name, and then mark this with on rpc attribute, and if not photon view.isMine return, and then synchronize materials index dot name equals name, and serialized materials index dot name equals name. Okay, cool. So that's that, and then we need to do refresh materials. So refresh materials, cool. So that's that. We have the ability to set that. So now we just need an internal method for the material menu. So public void set material name, and then we can just do custom rooms handler dot set, or no, material synchronization handler dot set material name, viewing, editing material, and then name field dot text. So what do we actually have as an index? Do we have, okay, so selected here. Anyway, I was close with that one. Right, thanks Avery, see ya. So that's that, and then we need to assign that once this recompiles. We need to assign that to this submit button, and then we need to add an input field, assign that to the material editor input field, which sounds very redundant, but I swear it isn't. This is it, mostly. The only other things I have is one bug fix, and then QA testing and marketing, and then the update's done. Which is honestly surprising. I didn't think I'd get it done on time-ish, but I only have 15 minutes left until I need to have this menu hopefully done, so I need to actually get to work. So set material name, and then this needs to be submit, and then snag the elements input field test, drop it in there, needs to be right there, boop boop boop, and let's see, 5 grab, cool. So now this needs to come over to here, add 0.005 for margins, and then make this full size, multiply by 100. Cool. So that is in place. Now I need to change the placeholder to enter material name, and I don't need to make that alphanumeric, there's not really a point. And then we can do, we need to adjust the colliders. So collider needs to come out to here, and then I need to actually adjust the scale controller too, because that is not really the right size. So that is in place. Does this have the right, nope. 1.5. There we go. So now it has the right border radius, and we can do material editor, name field, there we go. Okay, so that's the material name selection done. Now we need to do texture, shader, or shader, texture, and color. And the color picker I can copy over from the if I can remember the name, the configure menu. So that's that. Now, I think next up I'm gonna want to So actually I'm going to want to so I'll actually do that and then do current page equals material iter dot page index. So that way when we do refresh we can do material iter equals new page list serialized material, and then we can do material synchronization handler dot instance dot sync dot instance dot serialized. Okay, I guess it's not an instance thing. Serialized materials 1 or no m material buttons dot length, and then I can do material iter dot page index equals current page. Wonderful. So, and that won't cause any problems because it is a constant number, because there's always 50 materials, no more, no less. So we're not going to have any out of bounds issues. So now from there, okay, so that is set name, and then I'm going to need to do scroll, select, set shader, set texture, set color, and we have scroll, and that's it, and set name, obviously. Cool, so that's that. I also have that and that. Cool, wonderful. So this is going to be a little bit fast paced because I really need to get this done. So alright, so now we have that there, and cool, wonderful. So now I need to go in here, I need to go UI, image, make this the right size, put that in there, and nope, not that, that, there we go. Actually, yeah, I will go with that. Cool. So that can go there, that can go there, that can go there, and divide by, what do you think, 5? 5 looks good. And then I can subtract minus 0.005. Cool. And now this goes up, minus 0.005, and I can add material button. And now we need a UI text name, material name here, 0.015. And I'll actually make that 0.01. And then this needs to be there. This can go over to here. And actually I will enable wrapping on that because people might set really long material names. And then I will do that, and that. This can go to the far right side, and minus 0.005. Cool. So now this can go over to here, and submit needs to be based off of this. This needs to be click, and I can set that there. Cool. So that is material button 1. So now I can duplicate this. I will add 0.005 to the height, and now I can undo that. And then all I have to do is duplicate, and I can copy and paste. And that is the list done. Cool, wonderful. So if I move this down real quick, so that way it looks better, and I actually need to set all of these to bevel 4 and 150, so that way they actually have beveled edges, because it makes no sense without them. Center that, Cool. So if I center these, and there we go. Cool. So now I can add those, lock this. Moving right along. Alright, so that's the material buttons in place. Those render. Okay, so now we just need the texture descriptor, the shader descriptor, and then the color, and then we need the ability to set the color using the color picker in 10 minutes. Cool. So for that, I need to do submit. So shader. 0.005. Or no, actually, I'll just do level 4. 150. Now this can come down by 0.005 and up it up by about there. Let's see if that works. Actually, I will do that and then 0.005, 0.005, 0.005, and now I can divide this by 3. So if I can divide by 3 and do minus 0.005, 0.0075, I believe. Should be accurate enough. Subtract 0.005. Okay. And then that's the shader one, so now we need to do image, snag the submit button. Move it over to there, and move it over to there. And then this will be increment, decrement, and 90. Okay, cool. So now we need the. Do we already have the increment? No, we do not. So now we need to do. So this needs to be public void increment shader, and then we need to do shader iter.increment page, and then we need to do material synchronization handler set material shader selected material and shader iter dot page 0. Wonderful. And that is a shader descriptor page indices. Fine. There. Okay. So now we need to do that should auto render actually. So that is good. And then we can do the same thing for decrement. And this is misspelled. Cool. So that will automatically re-render. Wonderful. So I'm actually going to do. Actually, you know what? That's not what the time. So like void increment texture iter dot increment page material synchronization handler dot set material texture selected material byte texture iter dot page indices 0. Cool. Alright, cool, so I can decrement that. And there we go. Okay, so that's that. Now we wait for that to recompile. And what else do we have? Okay, so that's code for set shader descriptor, set texture descriptor, and then we need to make the UI for it. So that's that. We already have select, and wonderful. Alright. So that is, we need to go to the material editor. No, material editor, and then this needs to go to increment shader, material editor, decrement shader. Okay, now we need to do a TMP text in the middle, which displays the name of the shader. So we can do shader 0.015, fold, move it up to here, center, and put that there. Okay, cool. So now we can do name, and then shader name A. And this can go to here. Cool, wonderful. So that can be unbold. Move it down, and wrapping enabled. Ellipses. Alright, cool. So that's shader. Now we need to go to texture. Can subtract 0.05 and the height. Wonderful. So that is the texture menu. So now I need to set that up. So increment texture, decrement texture, okay, so that's there, and that's there, and we need texture name placeholder just for context, and now we can do material editor, increment, decrement, name, increment, decrement, name, and okay, that's everything except the color. So now we need to do the color, so that needs to go down by negative 0.005, and now subtract that, and that is going to be the color. This can be deleted. This can be renamed to tint color, and then this can be deleted as well. And then, so we're going to need a raw image to display the alpha transparency. So this needs to be raw image, transparency, and this can come down to here. We can add 0.005. Wonderful. So now we can go checker, default checker, and now this can be 4. There we go. Wonderful. And actually, I'll make this 8 and make this 2, so that way it gives us a nice texture. Don't need raycast target or masking, and now we can do UI image graphic. Copy component, paste component values, and now disable that, and we do not need any of that. So that is our graphic. So now this can go into material editor at the bottom, and there we go. Alright, cool. So that is the tint color. Now I just need to make it so that way you can edit the tint color, and I will do that outside of this. So I will see you later. Thank you for being here while I do this. So yeah, thanks for watching.